I've been working in this part of my food forest today, and I want to share with you a couple things that we're doing, including this HUGEL Mound behind me. Just to get some perspective of where we are, this back here is the property line on the north side. The property line hedgerow food forest is just over there, just back there behind me. There's my neighbor's fence just over there, right behind the tractor. Over here to the west is the entrance to the property. Right back here, this is where Grandpa used to live, and this is my neighbor's property. She drives a school bus. We are on the grid right now. When we first moved here, we wanted to have be able to get to work, and in order to get off grid, it would have been much more work at the very front end, and we were moving here kind of in a hurry. There's a whole story about that. If you want to watch that, then check out some of our other videos about who we are. And in order for us to be on the grid and to be on the grid economically, we need to be up here close to the front of the property. And this is where we are now. This is where we put down our roots. So this is where we're going to stay. And right behind me is the Chatty Shack, where our neighbor and friend who lives on the property with us, he came with us from California. And I've been working on this food forest behind his house, between his house and the property line and our neighbor's house. And I'll show you a little bit of what's going on back here and what I've been doing today. So I think it was early last year, early 2019. This is 2020. We had 50 or more big truckloads of wood chips delivered here. The electric company tree trimmers, or the tree trimmers that were contracted by the electric company, were working in the area, and they wanted to have a place to dump it. We wanted them, and so it was win-win for us. And I scattered wood chips all throughout this area here. In addition to when we first moved here about 4 years ago, I started cleaning up back here. This was a complete jungle over here. When they brought in electric from the property line where you just saw a moment ago next to that school bus, where they brought in electricity, they cut a bunch of trees through here. But here where the Chatty Shack is and here behind me, it was a complete jungle. You could barely get through it, even though it's only, I don't know, half an acre or an acre back here. I got it cleaned up and I did a lot of work back here, and then I started planting some trees. I'm not going to go through and name all of them. Right by this white post is a pawpaw tree. To my right, there are 4 different varieties of pear trees. There's a Kiefer pear, a Bartlett pear, a Moonglow pear, and an Ayers pear. There's also a few volunteer mulberry trees. In addition to right at the property line, there's a big mulberry tree. There's a couple of big hickory trees. This one back here is hickory tree, and there's also a hickory tree here and a big oak tree as well. I've also got several apples and peaches and nectarines and a couple of cherry trees back here as well. Maybe a plum tree or 2. If you've seen this back here before, it was really wild. I've taken the lawnmower through here and I've mowed through it, and that is, I did want to let the wild in. I still want to let the wild in, but I also want to let these fruit trees grow up just a bit more. I want to contain all of these wild blackberries because they are going crazy, and I want to try to get some of those out of here all throughout the property line hedgerow food forest, all throughout this food forest here. We've also got a food forest in front of our house. Oh, there's also a couple of chestnut. There's a chestnut tree over here at the property line too, in addition to the black locust, the arbor vitae, and some red buds all over here. I didn't start the nannyberries, the red mulberries, or the wild plums until just a little bit further over here off camera to my left. I suppose that you're right. You might not be able to see very well on camera. I'll get closer. Now, you might not be able to see how mounded this is on camera, but whenever they brought all these wood chips and I did a lot of this work, all that stuff is really great for the soil. So I piled a bunch of it right here, and then I put all sorts of wood chips on top of it. Now, before I started the video, I'd already put some more wood chips on top of this because some of that stuff had started sinking down. I want to try to get it more rounded so I could plant on this eventually. Now, typically with HUGEL mounds, what you want to do is put branches and, you know, little stuff especially, but also some bigger stuff because that stuff is going to break down over time, and the little stuff will break down first and the bigger stuff will break down later. But you want to put that stuff, all that stuff in there, and then put soil on top of that. I instead use these wood chips and then just let it alone, and it's been sitting here for over a year, maybe a year and a half. And I've done nothing at all with it because I'm not ready to plant a lot of stuff back here. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that I've done so far, is I've done all sorts of stuff. When you do all sorts of stuff, you can't do anything super well. Let me take you over here to this HUGEL mound that I want to work on, and I want to show you what I'm doing. A lot of these logs have been just sitting throughout this area, and I buried some of them in wood chips, and then some of the wood chips have decomposed, and then that kind of brought up the logs a little bit. Since I wanted to mow in here to get some of these things that I don't really want in here so much, so I can be a little bit more specific about what I want, I put them all here, and I'm gonna make a HUGEL mound of them. But you can kind of see what's happened here. On this one right here, you see how it's, look at how I can just tear it apart. See? This is log right here. It's decomposing. And you can also see some of this mycorrhizal fungi on it. Look right here. you see that? There's all sorts of those white little hair-like fungi all in this. And what that does is it breaks down and it feeds the soil and it feeds your plants. So growing in a HUGEL mound is a wonderful thing. I've not really done it. I've not grown in a HUGEL mound before because I'm just getting started on this journey. I'm telling you what I'm doing as I go. But I've got this one started back here and I've got another one over here too. Let me show you. So I don't know how well you can see this, but it is kind of mounded over. And why I did that was because there was a big tree here that I didn't want to move, and it was quite enormous. You can kind of see the stump back there in the background. Do you see it right there? There's the stump that had grown off of, and my neighbors were concerned before we moved over here that would fall down on their shed that's behind here. You can kind of see it right there. So they asked to cut it, and they cut it, and it fell this way, and here it is. Here it sits. So instead of trying to move it or anything, I covered it up, and that's going to decompose under there, and ultimately then I can plant in that, and that's going to be very rich, and it's going to be feeding the soil for years and years to come. Let me show you what I'm doing with the tractor and the wood chips. Remember over here on the other side of this field behind me, it's about 3 acres. It's on the other side of the high tunnel. There's the high tunnel right there, and just past it on the corner of this field is a big pile of the wood chips that were brought to our farm last year. So they've been sitting there decomposing. So I'm gonna go over there and get a few more wood chips and show you what I'm doing. I'll speed it up a little bit, and then you can kind of get the idea. One of the other ways of doing this, if you want to make a HUGEL mound on your own, is to dig a hole. And you can just use a shovel, dig a trench the length of the wood that you have, and dig it a couple of feet deep, and put that soil over to the side, and then put all the wood, the logs, the brush, including the leaves, put all that stuff in the hole, and then cover it up with the soil. So when you do that, it's got all that wood underneath there, and it's feeding the soil. And if you can leave that alone for a little while, then that would be great. Just leave it alone for a year if you've got plenty of space. If you don't, then you can start planting in it already, especially if you add a little bit of compost on top, and all that'll feed it. Mine isn't going to be, in the earth. It's on top of the earth, and then I'm gonna put the wood chips on top of it. So take a look. Okay, so the next step is for me to spread these out a bit more on here. It might actually need just a few more, but what'll happen is these are already composted some because they've been sitting over there for the past year and a half or so, but I'm gonna spread these over here and I'm just gonna leave it alone. I've got enough space that I can afford to leave this for just a little while. So I'm gonna spread it out just a little bit and then just leave it alone. Okay, so there's a lot of hollow spaces in there. This side over here could probably stand another scoop of wood chips, so I might do that before long, but you get the idea. This is a mound and it's got logs and stuff in there, but again, what I'm gonna do is just leave this here. I'm gonna do nothing at all to it. If it starts sinking down because of the rain and the decomposition, then I might put another scoop or two on there. This is really gonna provide me a lot of soil nutrition in years to come. All I've gotta do is do it now and then just leave it alone. And if I wanna start planting in it, then I can. These are a lot of wood chips. If I let them compost just a little while longer, then they'll be a little bit more fertile. I could do it now. Planting in wood chips don't always work out very well. Even though these are composted, it's still wood chips and they're gonna be low in nitrogen and you're gonna have to do something with that. But the biggest mistakes that I've made so far in my homesteading adventure is impatience and trying to bite off more than I can chew, trying to do too much at once. So focus on a little area, just build it up and grow and grow and grow it. And then if you get your systems in place, then it'll be easier and easier in years to come. I hope you'll keep on watching. We do a new video every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And on Sundays on YouTube, we do a live stream that's at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time, where Rue and I just sit in front of the camera and chat with you. We'd love to have you there. Thanks.